All right, everyone, welcome. We are at the top of the hour now. I just want to thank you all for joining us for this webinar from the National Association of EMS Educators. You're hearing the voice of Matthew Yohe. I am an education coordinator for the National Association of EMS Educators. To get us started, I would like to address a few housekeeping items. For today's presentation, attendees are in mute-only mode. We encourage you to interact in the Q&A and in the chat during today's presentation. I'd also like to let you know that this webinar is being recorded. The final recording will be made available through the NEMSI website and social media. Attendees of today's live stream are eligible to receive 1 hour of continuing education credit. These credits are approved by CAPC. A link will be included in the follow-up email that will take you to a location on nemsi.org to register separately for your CEUs and certificate. NEMSI members will receive the certificate free of charge, and there is a $25 charge for non-members to receive the certificate. We are joined today by Jennifer Stanislaw, who has kindly made herself available to be here. So on behalf of all of us at NEMSI, I'd like to thank you very much for sharing your time with us today. And this time, I'm very happy to introduce Jennifer.
Thank you, Matt. As Matt said, my name is Jennifer Stanislaw, and I've been in EMS for over 25 years. And in the last 7 years, I've been the program lead for a high school EMT program, which has been pretty revolutionary and pretty cool for me as a person and to interact with these young, amazing students. And the one thing I really want you guys to know about me is I am a passionate educator. I love what I do. I think pre-hospital medicine is highly underrated, so that's sort of my goal is to increase the public's perception of EMS providers. And if I can eradicate the term ambulance driver from the American vernacular, I'll have met my life's goal. So today we're going to be talking about the it factor and what is it, and we're going to define and then intentionally coach it. So the question is well, that's me, and this picture is amazingly, it speaks to my heart really well, because the lady on the right, her name is Kyla. She was a 2019 graduate of one of my programs, and she got hired on one of the same agencies that I work part-time on, and that was her first shift ever working on an ambulance, and I just felt thrilled that I was able to work with her on her first shift and practice driving and go on calls with her. It was an amazing experience. So why? Why did I choose to talk about the it factor? Because it's so hard to define. Some say it can't be completely defined, and I agree with them. It can't be completely defined, but we can definitely talk about elements of it. And if we talk about elements of it, then we can develop evaluation instruments to develop those and really try to increase the capacity of our new providers that get out there, be they EMTs or paramedics. So what is it? And I came up with this definition of is a provider who has a combination of KSAs, or knowledge, skills, and abilities that allow them to be an effective and efficient and personal provider. I'm going to talk, and I think examples work the best. So I'm going to give you 2 examples. One is this former student of mine who graduated the program at 18, and in Oregon, where I work, not very many EMTs can drive ambulances due to insurance regulations. This EMT worked for a company that normally would not allow 18-year-olds to work, but impressed them so much that they allowed him to work. And when the company was bought out by a larger corporation, that every member that worked with him went to their bosses and says, if you don't keep him, we are not staying either. So that was one guy who had the knowledge, he had the skills, but he was a personal provider, and he had it. And he's a very good provider as well, from talking to several of his partners. And then there's another coworker I had who is one of the most book smart people I know. He can tell you everything about the cardiac conduction cycle, about hemi blocks, and every time I listen to him, it just blows my mind the amount of knowledge that he has. But he doesn't have action smarts. He doesn't have that ability to take what he knows in the books and to put it out in the field and to be able to talk to coworkers and talk to the patient to be a good provider. So even though he's smart, he doesn't have the action smarts, or he doesn't have it. But first, let's talk about first impressions. Because when we meet somebody for the first time, you really never get a chance to, second chance to make a first impression. And we make instantaneous judgments, and it's our animal brain that does that. Our animal brain is the one that says, hey, is this a threat or not a threat? And we immediately jump and have this emotional reaction. So when we look at this picture, the emotional reaction is, wow, Prince Harry is flipping people off, and that's pretty impressive for a royal to do that. But it's not the case. We need to go and look a little bit deeper and find out that if we look at it from a different perspective, or we take a second chance, then maybe the truth will come out. So when you had an example, think back to when you had a provider that you knew and you're like, hey, they just don't have it, and you were proven right. Or did you have a first impression of one that says, hey, they got this, and you were proved right? Okay, was it them or was it you? This is one of those unconscious biases we may have when we make that first impression that says subconsciously or even consciously, did you make it the case that they were successful or unsuccessful? So this is part of what I call self-reflection. As I told you, I teach in a high school. And in order to teach in a high school, I had to take a lot of professional development along with other teachers. Like we have CEs, teachers have professional development units. And I went to, for the first couple professional development units, classes, and I thought I was going to do just what I do in usual CE classes. I was going to sit there, I was going to listen to somebody lecture, and I could do my other work, or I could do something else. Well, that wasn't the case. In the case of the professional development if we were getting taught a new way to provide information, we got up and did it. And then once we did that, we were often given a chance to sit down with 2 to 3 minutes of quiet self-reflection and look at it and go, how could I use this? Why did I do this? Why would I not do this? And have that little bit of 2 to 3 minute piece of self-reflection. And when I started, that self-reflection was so difficult, and I thought it was such BS. As a matter of fact, I often wrote, "This is such BS," when I was writing in my little diary. But over the years, and I've been there for 7 years now, I realized that self-reflection piece really made me a better teacher. It made me really take a look at what I was doing and how I could use it. So and I also got to thinking that, I also think that I've got these kids who have it and these kids that don't have it. And I realized, wait a minute, upon further self-reflection, am I causing them not to be successful, or am I causing them to be successful? And that self-reflection was pretty important in one of my aha moments of, I need to talk about this, and I feel that other educators need to hear this. I also often think about mentors and anti-mentors. Mentors are the ones that you want to be like them, and anti-mentors obviously you don't. And I have in my wheelhouse an anti-mentor that was a long-term paramedic educator in my state. And this educator was well known among the circles. If she liked you, you could do no wrong and you would make it through. And if she didn't like you, you had a very high hill to climb to get over to be successful. And every time I think about this person, and every time I think about a student that they go, oh, they don't got it, I really take a look and use this time of self-reflection going, I don't want to be like this person. I want to make sure to give my student the benefit of the doubt and really help them be better. So that's a really hard self-reflection. So what is it? What are the elements of it? And through my experience with being a field preceptor, I've been a field training officer, an EMS training officer, a program director for this EMT program. These are I sort of come up with these 5 things these are the things that make what it is. I can't get all of them, but I really think that these are some of them that we can go, if I look at these and take it apart, maybe I can help other people develop it. Because I don't think it is something that you can't train into somebody. Okay, so these 5 areas are, I call them, they're very interwoven. They're sometimes very complex ideas and ideals, and they often intertwine with each other. So you may see some repetitions, but I think those are the important ones. So we'll start off with interpersonal skills. Interpersonal skills are, I like this picture, it is how well do they play in the sandbox together? And this is one of the parts where I'd like to, sort of slow down and say, okay, if we have to interact with each other as providers, as educators, who are the people that we need to interact with? So this time I'd like to get into your chat and just go ahead and some people would use internal and external customers. So just stream of consciousness, type in the chat right now, would you please just type who you think new providers or any EMS provider needs to interact with during a scene, during time on a call. So if you could start, I will go ahead and start with my first one. And I think these others include preceptors. Okay, patients, police, good. Thanks, Joe. Families, yes, hospital personnel, yes. Thank you, Douglas. Patient, bystanders, other responders, the public, other health professionals. Thank you so much. Other EMS personnel, yes, especially if they're from other agencies. Everyone. My list came up with coworkers and fellow students. Oh, medical direction, that's a good one. Oh, I like this. I'm going to write some of these down because I will add those to my notes. Public works. Yes, public works are a good one. And medical direction, I didn't have that one on there. Okay. I had on my list, I had coworkers as well. I had fellow students coming from the education background, but I think this it factor also works for preceptors and in the field. Preceptors and mentors, other first responders, and obviously patient family. And the one I didn't see on there, and I think a lot of educators and preceptors may understand this one, is how well does the person interact with themselves? How do they, what is their self-talk? I know I've had a couple ones that go, I'm so stupid, I'm never gonna get this. And occasionally it's just they've had that one bad call and you can help them through that. But there are others that constantly take that, no, you're doing okay, come on, you got this, you're doing this. I think those interpersonal skills of an occasional, I don't have this, is okay, but we really have to look at the ones that don't self-talk very well. In my practice, I've been doing a lot of reading, and I love reading about education and educational theory. I love reading about leadership. I was reading about this, something called the interpersonal domain of learning by Cindy Vinson, and she's very succinct in if you have a lesson plan or if you have a piece of information that you want to give, you really should include these things in your lesson plan and how you deliver. Some of us have learned that through just by watching what makes a good instructor, and others have had actual good training. I think you need a melding of those. Let's see, there you go. So we have to have those interpersonal skills, and the first one is leadership and followership. As a general rule, I think everyone in EMS are those type A people. We are all leaders. We all like have a plan in our head. This is the way we want to go. And then when you get several of those people on a call together, tensions can get very high. You could have some disagreements. And having a formalized system of who is the leader and how to be a follower I think is very important. And one thing about a student or a person who has it, they sort of know when to be a good leader, and they know when and how to be a good follower. I like the military tenet that says in order to be a good officer or a good leader, one must learn to be a good follower, and that you have to know the role of the person above you and below you. I really appreciate that and try to show that in my classes and when I work with people, is that followership is just as important as leadership abilities. Okay. Another part of the interpersonal skills is they need to build and support upon each other. This is, I think, should be a subset almost of followership, because they build and support the team moving forward and the team getting the objective done. Now, the objective could be taking care of a patient. The objective could be doing a project at the station. The objective could be passing the midterm test. But I think if you get a group of people together and they build and support on each other, this is an important part of the it factors. Another part of interpersonal skills is the ability to seek and give information. Obviously, in the patient interview, we are often getting the information that we need, and we have tools that help us remember all the information that we may need, like sample OPQRST, AEIOU tips. Those are the sort of things like, oh, this will help me codify and sort of remember these are the things I need to ask. But this is also giving of information to the patients, to other providers, the ability to have the ability to pass that information along each other. Another one is the ability to propose a good idea and having the confidence to say, my idea is good. How about I propose this idea? And maybe, especially in that group of type A people, you may have to do a little bit of the next one, which is negotiating and compromising. These are all skills that you have to have it to be able to be a good provider and to be a personal provider. I'm sure we all can think about, and in our minds, think about one provider who was very, very smart, but he's just a complete jerk on scene, and probably have used a couple other stronger words to describe them. So the ability to have that negotiating, compromising skills and be personable is one of those elements of it. And I should put disagreeing in there as well, to be able to disagree. Do they even disagree? Or are they a yes man or yes person? That's one thing, is like if the ability to be confident enough to stand up and disagree with something and go, hey, this isn't right, or I disagree with this, and the ability to communicate that in a professional, in a calm, but in a way that gets their idea across. I like summarizing as well. Summarizing is best put out, I think, by doing radio reports, PCRs, and our patient care reports and evaluation forms. I'm sure if you are educators or preceptors or have ever been in that spot or even been evaluated before, you've seen those evaluation forms that are either short and everybody gets a pencil whip score and did great, and that does nothing for anybody. Or you get the evaluation form that is very, very thorough, but geez, it takes hours to complete, so nobody wants to do it. So you get pencil whipped and nobody learns from those evaluation forms. I think we need to find a rubric, an evaluation instrument that is a Goldilocks form. It is not too long, not too short, but really allows people to learn from what they've done and offer time for self-reflection. Okay, so I'm going to pause here for just a minute. Are there any questions, either in Q&A or in the chat, that you guys would like me to answer? I don't see anything. All right, I will continue moving on then. There we go. The next, so this is a good picture of a school working together on the ability to have those good interpersonal skills. Professional skills, also known as soft skills. I don't like soft skills versus hard skills. Professional skills are those that you never really explicitly teach. You just sort of expect people to understand. And where professional skills came out is where I work. This is Go Titans. I work in for the Salem-Keizer School District, and they have an extensive CTE program. We have 40 state-approved career and technical education programs. We have 12 programs in the startup, and 7 years ago, mine was one of the startup, which is emergency services. We teach an EMT program, and we do also do a fire service related program as well. But across all different career paths, from early childhood education, from manufacturing, from welding to cosmetology, the district talked to the employers and said, what do you need, other than technical skills, what do you need for the students coming out of high school to have to be able to be successful in the workforce? And so they put a group together and they came up with this professional skills rubric that is across all career and technical education, not just EMT, not just cosmetology, but it works on, okay, this is the base goal for everyone. And I thought this was an excellent thing to talk about. So obviously it's a rubric 4321, and in personal management, I love this one because a lot of times we know people, we expect them to be at work on time, but there's other things that in personal management that go with it. Are they there? Are they prompt? I know that when I was in paramedic school, we were told if you're 15 minutes early, you're on time, and if you're on time, you're late. That's not really communicated well to a lot of new providers. Do they complete their projects? Are they innovative? Do they take the initiative? Do we enforce that, or do we, as agencies or organizations, look at that innovation and not like it? Okay. I like students who always ask why, because I am sure a lot of you have this, oh, we've always done it that way. No, let's have a reason. Let's have some good institutional knowledge why we choose to do what we do. And the answer is, there was a question in the question answer. Can you have a copy? Most certainly. Anything I have, I am more than willing to share with everybody. A lot of this is stuff I read and want to share with you guys, and it just comes from me to you because I think we all need to work together to increase the, to just make our students better. So sorry for that little side, but going on with personal management, always arrives prepared and in EMS, well rested. I know that a lot of us have been in this business probably for a long time, and we have that sort of that thought, that culture of the more I work, I'm the hardest working person. If I'm exhausted, I'm a hard worker. I'm doing great because I'm sacrificing for my company. Well, time and time again, and I did this little research, a thought project for a class I'm taking about fatigue in EMS, and I was shocked about how much our skills degrade when we're exhausted. And I think really we need to take a look at our culture and our profession and find ways to mitigate that. There's a really good fatigue in EMS research done right now by the National Association of EMS Managers. If you want to know about that, I can put that in the PowerPoint, or this PowerPoint as well. On communication of both verbal and nonverbal skills, that's a lot of that interpersonal communication skills as well, so I'm not going to go through that as much, but accountability and productivity. Do they submit work? And this is really great for students. They think they submit work that's a 4, but it's the bare minimums. I call them BAMs, bare blank minimums of turning in stuff. Well, BAMS is a 3, not a 4. Do they responsibly follow and models the rules? I really like this one because it gives the students the ability to go, these are the rules, and I'm going to be a peer and influence my peers to follow the rules as well. Collaboration, models, and respect for hierarchy and diversity. This is one where I definitely try to put groups together that normally don't work together. We have a squad system in our classroom, and I purposely, after this first semester, I purposely mix them all around and make sure that the leaders are all separated, and that the little groups that always, cliques that always work together get separated, so that way they have the ability to learn to collaborate with new people. So this all comes back to, circling back to it, is that if they can have these parts and this rubric, and believe me, I love rubrics for helping people learn and improve, this is something that we can use in the whole it factor. Okay. Have you ever read an article that after you were done reading it, you go, that was paradigm shifting, or that was what I've been saying all along, and now somebody else is saying it, or they're saying it better? And so I read a 2017 article, and I apologize if I'm messing his name up, but Robert Girardeau, if I said that wrong, I do apologize. Emotional intelligence isn't only a tool to help you motivate an organization towards success and greatness, but it's also the it factor in leadership. It's what sets people apart. And when I read that, I was like, whoa. And then not only is it great for leadership, but as educators, we can also be considered leaders, and we're developing future leaders. So maybe we should talk to them and realize what emotional intelligence is. Okay. So you can, and that's that emotional intelligence article is available on GEMS's website. So the premise behind emotional intelligence is delaying that emotional response. Somebody tells you some information and you immediately get mad and you want to spew something, but then you're like, nope, I have to think about it. So with EI, emotional intelligence, the two key concepts promoted in the article were, what do I observe and how do I react? And then that linked me to the OODA loop by John Boyd, who's a colonel in the United States Air Force, where he came up with this idea that before you make a decision, you actually continually do this loop. And this loop is to observe an event, orient yourself about where you're going and what you want to do, make a decision, act upon it, and then observe for consequences and results, adapt and change, and continue doing this. And that OODA loop takes a little bit of time, takes a little bit of practice, but by adding that OODA loop with emotional intelligence, then you get this idea that, okay, I have to delay and think about my actions, and can I do that? And it's not a skill that is, it's not something that you immediately and innately have, though some people seem to do it. It's a skill that you can practice, and better yet, it's a skill that you can coach. So in the article, and I borrowed this from that GEMS article, and on the bottom you can see the website for it, is there's 4 different parts of everyday emotional intelligence skills. And it comes down to, look in the center, that loop of self-awareness, self-management, empathy, and relationship management. In the self-awareness, you have to have that a self-confidence and emotional insight to know, why are you doing what you are doing? This is pretty, this actually comes back to that self-reflection piece I was talking about earlier, where you have to know why you're doing the things you're doing. And if you know why, then you have the chance to change the future and change your reactions to it. You have to look at what triggers your emotion and learn to get control over the emotion. I have a daughter with ADHD, and she flies off the handle like you wouldn't believe. So we are working with her every day to look at her triggers, to work at her to slow down the trigger and slow down that emotional response. And she's getting better. She's getting so much better. I'm so proud of her. But yeah, it takes time, and it takes that ability to look at yourself and go, you know, why am I doing, and do I have the confidence to go, okay, let's keep going. On self-management, that is that resilience, the ability to come back from adversity and bounce back from it. It's the self-motivation piece as well. Can you get going, and can you motivate yourselves? Leaders have to lead from the front. You can't push a wet noodle. So with self-management, being able to go, I've got the motivation to do the right thing, to get moving. A big piece of this is that emotional balance, and that is finding the balance between work and home. Because we all have stressors between work and home. It's that finding that time to take for yourself, that's in doing things for a healthy reason, like yoga, working out, reading a book just to read a book. That's fun. It's that taking that self-management piece and allowing yourself to be healthy. And I think that's something that we need to teach students and new providers, and we need to coach it into them that, you know, yes, you need to study, yes, you need to do this, but you also need to find the balance to take care of yourself as well. The next one on empathy is pretty interesting, because there's actually two types of empathy. There's one, it's called the cognitive empathy. And that cognitive empathy is the ability to understand why people feel the way they do about a subject or about a reason. And in today's day and age, we are often on that reactionary part and not really taking that time to understand why they feel like they do. Emotional empathy is the ability to read and understand another person's emotions quickly and accurately. That is also a skill that is not easy for some people. I have a son on the spectrum, and he does not do well with that. But by practicing and by doing that interpersonal communications and watching and going, well, what are they thinking and why, he's getting that ability, and it's working harder. It's something that we can coach, and that's the big thing about this whole process and thing I'm talking about right now, is that we can coach these things if we, one, tell them about them. You know, this is the ability to tell them what they don't know about themselves. And if they can begin to go, I understand, I can start working on that and have a plan, we can develop that it factor. Okay. The fourth part is that relationship management. And this is going back, and I said everything was intertwined, is communication. And you have to communicate in a way that compels and motivates people to do something. Not just, you know, dropping the hammer and saying, you shall do this. It's that ability to take them and go, I understand you might not necessarily want to do this, but we as a team need to complete this project. And if you can get them to buy in and be motivated with you, you'll have students that are more willing to work together, more willing to take chances, to make mistakes, to get better at being a good pre-hospital provider. I like one of the other sentences in this article was, emotional intelligence allows leaders to manage an organization in a way that the staff feels like they're part of a team. I tell students in my school that I was never really a great ball player, so I never played basketball, I never played softball, and I never swam, so I never was part of an athletic team. It wasn't until I got into emergency services, I got into the fire department, I got into some of the ambulance services I worked for, and then now leading this EMS or emergency services program. It's like, we are a team and we need to work together. And I've had students come back and go, you know, that was one of the best teams I was ever on, and it really makes my heart feel good, understanding that they were part of that team and that they can bring that forward. All right, we're 30 minutes in. Are there any questions right now? I'm looking at the chat and the QA. Okay. I read another article by Dominique Jones that in Fortune in 2015. The article was proof that success has nothing to do with intelligence. And this was a thing on leaders, how leaders aren't necessarily the smartest ones, but they surround themselves by smart people. And the big thing, one of her things that she said, in addition to what was in the GEMS article, was to be humble or be humbled. I love this quote, and I keep telling myself this a lot. Every time I've allowed my ego to get ahead, every time I've thought, hey, I got this, I'm the best at this, blah, 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 and I get this big ego, and I let that attitude start influence the people around me, I get slapped down. I have gotten slapped down a couple times, and the last time was pretty devastating. That I think that devastation, though, allowed me to become the educator I am now. And I still remember and tell myself, be humble or you're going to get humbled, and just be thankful of all the opportunities and pass that around, because that makes me want to continuing doing what I'm doing and helping other people. And I think we all got into that because we wanted to help other people. All right. Critical thinking. This is one of those buzzwords in education that, we need to teach our providers to critically think. Okay, how do we do that? We just need to do that. Okay, how do we do that? Oh, better yet, what is critical thinking? And a lot of preceptors I've dealt with, and a lot of other people look at me and they give me this quizzical look like, it's critical thinking. It's like, okay. So once again, in the chat, I would like to get your guys' definition. So if you could define what you think critical thinking is in the chat, I would appreciate it. Okay, ability to think outside the box, yes. Being able to take the information, put it together, paint a full picture. Yes, assimilate your surroundings and make decisions all together. Thoughtful and decision based on the assessment you make. I love these. Thinking through the problem, coming up with a variety of solutions. I love those. That is awesome. One of the ones I have used in the past was the ability to figure it out yourself without Googling it. A lot of people are like, well, how do you do this? I don't know. Have you tried it? Oh, I'll just look it up. And they look it up on Google. I'm like, come on, guys, think it through. Once again, I read another article about this gentleman who's an educational researcher. His name is, I have it in here. There we go. Big buzzword in education. Critical thinking, Daniel Willingham, his commonsensical definition of what critical thinking is that your thoughts are original in the moment, and remember, he's thinking from the education world, not EMS world necessarily. So these are the original thoughts and not carried over from a previous situation. So it's not going, to me, this theme seems like, well, this person has chest pain, and so they're having an MI, and that's the only thing I'm going to think about. They don't take out the information from other ones. So to critically think, you take the information and you continue with it and move forward with it, and not say, if it's like this, it was in the past, it has to be like this now. Self-directed, not following instructions from another person. I have worked with students who they are great followers, and you ask them perform a skill and they do the monkey skill, and that's great, but they have no idea when to do it. I've always said that the psychomotor skills, I can teach a monkey to intubate. I can't teach the monkey when to do an intubation or when to do an airway maneuver. And so in my education circle, we call those psychomotor skills monkey skills, because they're just technical hands-on stuff, not the decision-making capability. And respects for conventions that make it more likely to yield conclusions. These are how he came across with critical thinking. I thought they were pretty cool. But how do we do that? These are great. That's a great definition. How do we do that? And in his research, he found that transference of critical thinking skills from math to science or math to social studies, it wasn't there. unless they were told to think about, well, if you think about how you did in science, maybe it does it over here in social studies. That transference of skills doesn't happen. What does happen, though, is that if the students have extensive stores of knowledge in an area, okay, this is where I'm going, knowledge of parts of a similar thing that snap together to when solving complex problems. So they have the ability to go, I've seen this before, or I've heard about it before, and I've seen other things that are like that. I can put them together. I use this scenario of simple to complex. When we start off with scenarios, we give them something very simple, something very, very straightforward, like a simple MI. A simple, chest pain, shortness of breath, diaphoresis, 9 out of 10, started at rest, the very simple. And then as we go on, we add to their stores of knowledge until they can do complex scenarios where they can diagnose an MI, but they may not have all the regular pieces. So they snap those people together to solve the complex problems. Recognizing clumps of information allows the working memory to handle more. I like this to starting an IV, to backboarding somebody, to taking a set of vital signs where you know the skill or you know what is going on so you don't have to think about it, so you can be planning steps. You're on step A, but you can be planning steps B, C, D, and all the way to Z. It's a lot of it's also the signs and symptoms of disease processes that allows you to critically think and go, okay, I have these possibilities, what questions do I need to ask? And knowing more about a topic makes it easier to deploy those thinking strategies. This is one of those things about continuing education that drives me bonkers. Continuing education should be furthering our education. It should not be classes that repeat your first and second years of school. That drives me. If I sit through a CTE or a continuing education class and they give me airway anatomy again, I'm frustrated. We need to be giving our providers continuing education. So we need to scaffold, what information do they need at the beginning and what do we need to add on to it, then we can make them to be better providers. Okay, so here's what some of you might be thinking is what I'm saying is that EMTs and paramedics should need years and years of schooling to become better critical thinkers. And my answer to that is no. I'm a firm believer in education, but I'm a firm believer in the appropriate education. If I had my druthers and I could change the entire way we train EMTs and paramedics, we would follow the electrician's model where we would have an apprentice, we would have a journeyman, and then we would have a master EMT or paramedic. That's my personal feeling, but I don't think a 4-year degree necessarily makes a better critical thinker, because honestly, we all have known that. If you've ever worked on a training side of an organization, the new paramedic that comes out, who do you put them with? You put them with the old EMT because you know that EMT is going to take care of them. Okay. Next one, affective behaviors. The affective behaviors is usually not discussed or not really explicitly taught in education. It's more of a way of life, but we really can talk about affective behaviors in schools and classes. The big thing about affective behaviors, the students, the new providers, they have to be willing to listen. They have to be willing to be an advocate for themselves, for their patients, for their organization. They need to be able to participate. They have to be involved. And they have to incorporate the values of your organization in everything that they do, and they have to have integrity. Well, those are great ethereal things that we're like, that's really difficult to assess because you can't do like a psychomotor skill, did they or didn't they? Well, you can sort of really do a rubric on affective behaviors. And thanks, I went to NEMC in 2017 and got introduced to a couple people there who shared this information. And if you've never gone to one of the conferences there, I would highly recommend it, because I came away with gigabytes of information that have just helped me. So in 2002, there was this National Guidelines for Educating EMS Instructors, and they had an affective domain rubric. I utilized that one. This is mine. It's actually a Google Doc that looks very similar to that one. And then El Centro offered this one, and they have students at the end of every week evaluate their affective abilities, their affective skills, to make sure that it's constantly on top. And it's amazing that when you have them go, okay, I want you to go ahead and score yourselves on these, the students seem to think that they're all 3s or all 5s, until you start doing the evaluation score with them and you show, this is what I see, they can start to see, oh, maybe I'm not as good as I am, or maybe I am better than I am. Having this affective domain instrument, tool, rubric has the ability to give students an idea and a concept of how is my behavior and how can I improve it. The one good thing I learned about this is that we've all had those students in there that you're like, I just, they've got the technical scores, they got the psychomotor stuff, but they're just a jerk, or they're just not a good provider. They're just not somebody I would want working on me, but we can't kick them out for being a jerk. Well, in the having an affective domain rubric and having a number and going, listen, you consistently, like in professional maturity on the El Centro one, you consistently have been rating a 1 and have not been increasing your scores through the time. That is not responding to training, and if that's a no-go in some areas. So this is the ability to help students self-reflect, see how other people see them, and hopefully change their behavior. If they don't change their behavior, it gives you a physical tool to say, you didn't change your behavior, so we're going to kick you out, or we're going to send you back. So what? We've talked about the elements of it. We've defined it. So what does this mean? It means that with all these different elements and all the different rubrics that I've shown you, that we can come together and develop our own IT factor evaluation rubric, and you can call it whatever you want. Do I have one to give you? No. The reason why is because I think the elements are so various and so broad, and they need to be tailored down to your organization, your company, your school, that you can look at all these and go, I got this piece here, I got this piece here, and it needs to be tailored to what you need to do. Believe me, I have been working on trying to get the rubric started. I've put these pieces together, and maybe in a month or two I may have something to give you if you want to see what it would be for my school. Things obviously with COVID slowed things down a lot. This was my goal, my professional development goal for school was to develop this IT factor evaluation, but with COVID-19 hitting, that didn't happen, okay? So you can use, I'm gonna, this will be on YouTube. If you want the rubrics that I have developed, I'm more than willing to share it. I'll have my email on here in a little bit, but I just remember with the evaluation instrument, it needs to be a Goldilocks way. By Goldilocks, I mean not too long, not too short, and truly an evaluation, not just a pencil whip. So with that, I would remind you that you always build good ALS on great BLS. I love teaching paramedics, but I love teaching EMTs even better because I can turn them and mold them to be great providers. I appreciate the Resuscitation Academy for letting me borrow this beautiful thing. I have this as a poster in my classroom. Build good ALS on great BLS. So I want to think we have 10 minutes left. I'll leave that open for any questions or comments. This is my name. I do run a blog, which hasn't been, unfortunately, very busy this past couple months due to everything going on, but I do have a Twitter and a Facebook. There's my email address. And this picture right here was a challenge on the last week of school. We had a dress as day, and one of them was dress as your favorite educator. And I love this Einstein quote: "Is education is what remains after one has forgotten what has one learned in school." So this actually won me a Dutch Bros gift card. So with that, I'll take any questions or questions or comments. Okay, I'm not seeing any. Okay. Thank you, Bo. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And once again, anything that I have on here, if you just email me, like the rubrics, I'm being more than willing to send them to you. All right. Okay. So Charlene wrote, would love to learn more on this topic. I'd be more than willing to go in depth onto some of these other ones that I've learned of each of the one domains themselves. But I think for an hour, I think it was a little fast, but I think you can definitely go down the rabbit hole of a lot of these articles in there. I love reading them, and I get lost sometimes going, I need to do this. Okay. Okay.
All right, if anybody has any more questions, you can type them in now. I was just wanted to thank Jennifer again for sharing her knowledge and information with all of us. And thank you for everyone who attended this webinar. And there will be a follow-up email that will be sent out tomorrow with a link to register for your CEUs and your certificate. And we'll also include Jennifer's email on that as well. So you can ask her any more questions if you have to do so.
And thank you, Matt, for this opportunity. And once again, as I said in the presentation, I really don't think we can grow as people unless we get effective evaluation of our performance and our abilities. So if you have anything that would make me a better speaker for these webinars, please let me know. I have a tendency of, talking faster, so I've tried to slow down. My husband said I sound teachery sometimes, so please let me know if there's anything that you'd like to evaluate my performance on. I appreciate it. Even if it's hard, even if it's negative, I appreciate it.
Great. Well, thank you again, Jennifer.
Thank
Thank
you.
everyone for attending. If you have any questions, we'll provide it with your email, but have a nice day, everyone, and thank you for attending.
All right. Stay safe out there, guys.